Hi, I'm Jessie Heron, host of Rediscover Your Story, a podcast for marketers who need a break from everyday learning but still want to hear from like-minded professionals on all things creative. Our guest today is Seth Tanner, Director of Content for the Cincinnati Bengals. He's the love letter from the Cincinnati Bengals fans back to the locker room and the players. And you're going to want to stick through this whole episode to find out which Bengal player has the most impact on fans outside of Cincinnati. It's not who you think. And who day gonna rediscover your story? Hey Seth, welcome to the Rediscover Your Story podcast. I mean, we've only been talking about Nutella.
I hope it all makes the cut, honestly.
I hope so too. But hey, thanks for coming here. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for pulling over on the side of the highway and stopping in at Resolve.
When I first heard about this, it's really hard this time of year to get the schedules lined up. But like this was on the way into work, and I'm like, this is perfect. I can easily pull this one off.
Exactly. Yeah. Just pull over on the side of the road. We'll make it work. So, hey, we were really excited that you were able to come on to the podcast. Obviously, the podcast is really for us to help rediscover stories, talk about what's going on in the world with each of our individual guests. You have a unique position that you get to be the director of content. Is that the right title?
Yes.
So you're the director of content for the Bengals, our hometown NFL team. How cool is that?
It's an incredible job. Like, I can't deny the fact that I have a very privileged position that I'm sitting in to just have a fun, wacky job. Like, I've done so much while being there to where I would never get the opportunities to make some of the stuff that I get to make. And it's because there's like an inherent interest around the team that people really care about. So I've done everything from making, a puppet rap to surprising, like playing pranks on the fan of the year and making them sing Christmas carols. It's just a wacky job, and it's not lost on me how cool it's been.
Well, and I think too that it's so interesting for us in Cincinnati, for the fans in Cincinnati, to be so engaged. And I think that, I don't mean to make you feel awkward by saying this, but I mean to brag on you a little bit. I think from a social media standpoint, from a content standpoint, it's not lost on us that over the last couple of years, it's been great. It's been fun to engage online with the Bengals, and the Bengals, inadvertently re-engage with the fans. So how important is that to make sure that you keep fans engaged?
Well, I think I just to go ahead and get the selfish reasons out there, I like doing this. So it's really fun for me. But also, we do have one of the highest engagement rates in the league. And as much as winning helps out with that, we were doing pretty well in 2020 even, before the team really took off and found a lot of success. And it was kind of just because we changed up our philosophy and how we were presenting content to the fans, and understanding that we work in the entertainment industry. So why not entertain people on a day-to-day basis on social media? So the fans really have always had this good energy. Even before 2020, you look around and you have all these super fans and all these massive tailgates that are, famous around the country. And the fans were already engaged before the social media changes or the changes to our show Bengals Weekly or the changes that we did on game day within the stadium. And I mean, they were, ready to explode, and we just lit that sucker.
Yeah, you kind of poured gasoline on the fire, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't disagree with you. I mean, again, growing up here in Cincinnati, being a Lot D and a Lot A tailgater, right? It's a lot of fun. I guess I didn't realize how famous, I guess, some of these tailgates were outside of the Cincinnati market. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think, I don't know what the initial motivation is. And there's a lot of different feelings about the fans that dress up in costumes and create characters around themselves and everything. But I think at its core, at its heart, it's because those fans wanted to engage with the Bengals in some fashion. And now that we are doing all these additional things, like it's just taken on its new life. So like that motivation, that passion was always there. And today, like we're just, helping it find new life in different ways.
So talk to me a little bit about this newer philosophy. So when you were talking about like in 2020 and, sort of changing it up from the content perspective, just kind of give us a little bit of that like inside scoop about that philosophy.
Well, I mean, when they hired me, legitimately, they really took a shot on me. So they brought me from the Chiefs before, and I had a video production background, and I worked a lot on game day shows primarily. I worked in social media a little bit as well, and was on like our social media committee out in Kansas City, and genuinely didn't really have a ton of like managerial experience. And they really took a shot on me. So normally you go from, producer to lead producer to manager to director. And I went from lead producer just right up to director. And they brought me in because like I was passionate. I understood the financial importance of creating good content. And I had a pretty good reel of just like weird stuff that was like, this is good fan engaging content. And
Right.
So like the decision was already made by the organization that there was going to be a philosophical shift in like how they approach the content. My time coming into the organization really coincided with Elizabeth Blackburn coming on board as well. And we've collaborated a ton to really get the brand voice correct. And I think more so than anything, like the league has changed to not just be like super serious gridiron football. Like there used to be like the hallowed grounds of the NFL.
Sure. Yeah.
And like that was the attitude for so long. And I think as
kind of like this new blood has kind of come through, right? Like younger.
The
right?
culture has shifted considerably, and now it's, people don't want to take themselves so seriously. So you can even see it with the players. Like they all have these like great social media personalities, and they know that like taking themselves too seriously is not going to translate into a higher Q rating. You know what I mean?
Right.
So because of that, now today, like you got to adapt, you got to like grow with it. So they brought me in, gave me a lot of faith, kind of gave me free reign to do what I thought was appropriate. And, 2020, something happened that year.
What was that thing?
Everything kind of shut down.
Everything kind of shut
down. Initially I came in and I said I wasn't going to be like a knight in shining armor. I'm not going to change things overnight or whatever. And I was going to really take an assessment of the things that we needed to do over the course of the year and give ourselves a runway to make like proper decisions. Everything shuts down. It doesn't matter. Everything's out the window. And
you have to change literally overnight. Yep.
I ran the draft. I ran 2 different computers for the draft to get a live stream TV show, like a live stream show up at the same time as like producing content from my remote workstation in Kansas City, of all places. So
wow,
it was just wacky. And like, everything would like COVID was a catalyst for making those changes on social media. And then we go to the Super Bowl the next year, and that's a catalyst for even more changes extremely quickly. We go to the AFC Championship this previous year, and that means more changes. And now we're like expanding 2 major long form content pieces with our Renee All Day podcast / YouTube series, as well as our new TV show From the Jungle that just premiered on Tuesday, and it's seen a lot of great success so far with it. And it's been a whirlwind. I hope it like stabilizes and like you know, we get a year of just like flat like
You can't say
content
that out
growth.
loud. That's not going
I
to happen
need it.
now.
I absolutely need it.
It's never going to happen now. You said it out loud.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, do you thrive under a lot of pressure? I mean, it just feels like coming in, right? You had COVID, you had all of those sort of like restrictions. Then we have, we have Super Bowl, AFC champion, right? Like all these things that are just sort of like powering up the pressure and amping up even more content and more engagement. So do you thrive under those pressurous moments? Is that even a word? Pressure?
Pressurized. Yeah.
Pressurous?
The most pressury. Yeah. So
Nutella?
so like I am a maniac when it comes to working. So I do like working. And I know that's not for everybody. I'm not here to be like, you need to be working, 60 hours a week or anything like that. But I like enjoy it. I think
that's what works for you.
Yeah. And I think there's something good about, there's something about personal growth that happens when like you stick yourself in high pressure situations and
Thank you.
And you excel and you end up with a product that you're like super proud of. I made mention of this to a group that I was speaking to a couple weeks ago. Like nobody's ever done anything seriously great on a 40-hour work week. And I think it's really important to recognize that like if you want to do something phenomenal and creative and great for the world and that the world's going to really appreciate, you got to dump your soul into it. And I've always really appreciated the fact that like, that there's a balance to all of it as well. And I was just saying like, this is the busiest time of year for me. We work, 70 hours a week, sometimes 80 hours a week. I got somebody in there that like, in order to get our show out, he pushed 90 hours a week for the last 2 weeks.
Wow.
But like the product that we ended up with is phenomenal.
Right.
And you could, it's just that kind of passion, like caring that much is what like makes for good art in my mind.
Yeah.
And I just like don't think anything that we do would be as special if we didn't care as much as we did.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I agree. I mean, there obviously being on the video production side and working for a video company, you can't really control schedules as well as you want to control schedules. When things happen and you need to be there, you just have to go do it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, totally understand.
I chose to work in the entertainment industry. This is my own doing.
You're right.
When does entertainment happen? When everybody's not at work.
Right, right. Exactly. That's just the way it is. So talk to me about like building a team. I mean, obviously, well, unless you tell me that you're the only one doing it, which I would be like, oh my God, right? But talk to me about building that team and finding the right people. And even, I don't know, extend a little bit into, you mentioned some of the players having their own social media accounts. I mean, how do you kind of control the narrative or not control the narrative? I mean, how does content kind of run through you and out to the ether?
So I'm not going to say I'm the... I have the best judgment all the time, 100% of the time. But that's why you have, people that compliment you in good ways. I'm the one that's a little bit of a wild card. And then I've got, Emily Parker, our PR director, that like she knows how to rein me in sometimes. And same thing with Elizabeth. She's like, well, that doesn't exactly fit, our family's brand voice as to how we want the organization to be perceived. And it's like, all right, fair. It is your business. I do need to like make sure that I'm aligning with that. With the players, like, yeah, sometimes you just can't predict what's going to happen. It's the industry that it is. There's, a lot of guys down inside that locker room, and to expect everybody to like be aligned with, the brand voice and everything is unrealistic. So
interesting.
Things happen and you got to adapt with it. And you got to be, understanding that the world is really chaotic in that regard.
There's realness to social too. I mean, when you're talking about social media content in particular versus like the docuseries that you have, right? That is obviously something that you can cut, edit, make it sort of flow the way that you need it to. But with anything that's going out on a live or any sort of social media platform, I mean, how do you kind of control that?
Yeah. you just hope that everybody has that is working within the department kind of has a good grasp of as to what's appropriate, what people care about. And it's a constant learning process to say that we get in there and that everybody's going to be perfect every second of every day is just not realistic.
Yeah.
And
probably wouldn't make it for a good brand story anyway, right?
Yeah,
too perfect isn't really fun.
I think it's funny because I mean, like, you know how social media is. It is a conversation platform, but people love to see you screw up.
Yeah.
Love to see it happen.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate. I don't think people recognize how human it is at the same time, but it does keep you on your toes to keep you like as up to snuff and, you know, buttoned up as you possibly can.
Yeah. Talk to me about the new docuseries. So I watched it when it first came out. Really great. What was sort of like the inspiration behind it? Because, I mean, you have got Hard Knocks, right? So it's almost like, I don't know, when I was kind of thinking about it, I was describing it to somebody as, well, actually my best friend described it to me this way, and then I kind of regurgitated, but it made sense, was that it was kind of like...
co-opted it, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, thanks, Lauren, because I was asking her, and she's like, well, it's kind of like a Hard Knocks meets Cincinnati, and it's like Hard Knocks Cincinnati style, right? Yeah.
See, that's the thing. It's not like Hard Knocks.
Okay, tell me.
Tell me
why.
Use
That's
that
great.
as like everybody uses that as a describer, including myself.
Like a blanket. Like when you say you go to search something, you say you go to Google it. Okay.
Like, I mean, like you say it's a NFL team docuseries, and it's like, well, yeah, you do have to say it's like Hard Knocks, but like, it's really not. That's not the point of the story. The story that we are trying to tell is like the relationship between the fans and the football team, as well as the football team and the fans. Like at the end of the day, at the end of the day, Hard Knocks is very football focused. It's not about like the connection with the fans. It's about like the personalities on the team. And we like to, Hard Knocks isn't really concerned about wins or losses or like how people are feeling on a given day. And
or the fans, to your point.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's not like a knock on Hard Knocks. And but it is like they just have a different message that they're trying to convey with their story. Like right now, they're just super hyper focused on showcasing the personality of Aaron Rodgers. What we're interested in showcasing in this is like how ingrained the Cincinnati Bengals are with the Cincinnati community, while also doing it through the lens of, you know, the wins of a season. Hopefully not very many losses.
Right.
And that's the story that's much more compelling to me. I think sometimes people forget that like this is one of the few teams where the ownership actually lives in Cincinnati. They're a part of this community. They grew up here. They are as Cincinnati comes. And I think it's a really important reminder that they aren't like they're in the building, they're working, and this organization is a family-ran business. And this it's not like this elitist external group that are like running this Cincinnati Bengals team, and it is literally a part of the community. So it's going back to your point of like how engaged the fans are with this team. And I think this isn't like a story that hasn't been told through different lenses. But I think that it is so special here in Cincinnati and with the Bengals, like just how passionate these fans are, that it's worth telling this story as well.
Did you notice that when you first came here? So not to pick on you because you're a transplant, but to kind of just point out, like, again, born and raised here in Cincinnati. I mentioned to you earlier before we were talking is like, you know, my dad comes from like original sort of Cincinnati Bengals all the way to here, you know, to now, versus my son who's only 9 years old. So he only knows of the Bengals with like the Joe Burrow, the, you know, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins kind of days. So, but like, you know, you have someone like my dad who has been a fan his whole life, regardless of the wins or the losses. Did you feel that when you got to Cincinnati? I mean, you obviously wanted to make something that connected the fans with the team in a docuseries way. I mean, what did you kind of feel when you came here?
Honestly, I didn't know, and
Sure.
especially with COVID and
Oh yeah, you were kind of just
yeah,
not
like
able to engage with anybody during
no,
COVID.
no,
Yeah.
no. I mean, like the first game was completely empty. There's no fans in the stands at all.
Yep.
And I think like what was my first real dose of seeing just how passionate the fans were was probably our new uniform launch in early 2021 to see just like how hungry fans were to like engage with the content. And
You're talking about the all white jersey.
no, so this one
Okay.
was like our full uniform
Got it.
refresh. So we
Got it.
redid the black uniform, the
Yep.
white uniform, the orange uniform, everything was completely redone.
Yep.
The year after that, we introduced the white Bengal helmet. But I think that was like really the first time that I got like an actual dose of just like how passionate the fans were. We got to the home opener with Minnesota that year, and it was a great turnout, and like the fans were loud, like really into it. And I'd always been told that the fans had liked to sit on their hands a little bit, and that wasn't true.
Right.
And it was just like, okay, we just weren't presenting to them in the proper way. And we switched things up going into that game and really hit them hard with like trying to be like, this is the new standard. We want you to be engaged the entire time.
We want you to be loud. We want you to,
Yeah,
to
it's
cheer the whole time, stand the whole time, whatever.
Not just the expectation on ourselves to like produce in a certain way. It's the expectation on them to act a certain way when they're at the games, and to see them like adopt that so quickly was really my first sort of like, oh, we could find a lot of success in this. Like we've had success in the content area, but like I think we can find like continued success and growth. And like as long as they keep reciprocating, we're going to be in a great situation.
Yeah, that's perfect. So then how was the engagement with the launch of the first episode? How did it go? Were you happy with the results?
I'm very happy with the results. I mean, like obviously at the end of the day, you wish you had, 2 million views or something like that. But
Sure.
we had our most successful long form video release in the first 24 hours, the first 48 hours now. And that's great. That's one part of the story with it. But then also I was looking at total watch times. Like you have a video on TikTok that has 5.8 million views, and it's like super successful video. It's literally half the total watch time of everything that's been consumed from the jungle so far.
Right.
So something like 40,000 versus 80,000 watch hours or something like that.
Right.
And that means like, great. People are super engaged. They are sitting through it. Like our completion rate is somewhere around 40%. So people are making it to the end of the episode, which is fantastic. I'm excited to see like YouTube's one audience. Like that's how some people consume. We're going to be going on TV as well, up in Dayton, down here in Cincinnati on Local 12. And I'm excited to get the show out to that audience as well that doesn't consume on the digital platforms. So it's been a massive success so far, quite honestly. And I'm hopeful that we continue to grow and build on it. And one of my favorite comments that I saw on Reddit from the episode release is that one of the fans wrote, "This feels like a love letter to the fans." And so they're picking up on it already.
Right. Yeah, that's the exact thing that you really wanted. And what metrics are the most important to you? So even not just for this long form piece of content, but like anything else that you're, putting out into the world for everybody. Like what are the metrics that you're most concerned with or most paying attention to? And I'm asking from just like a content and data nerd back to a content, person. Like what is it that?
I mean, just to cut the romance for a second, like growth, because growth means dollars.
Yep.
Like that's the absolute truth on it. You start building growth, then it means that your floor is going to be raised on any piece of content that you put out there in terms of impressions, engagement, whatever. That's kind of changing in how the algorithms are feeding you content now. You can see on Twitter, X, whatever, is like they're now doing more of for you rather than like what you're following. even the same thing on Reddit. It's the same thing on Instagram. So that means that you don't exactly have to, have followers in order for your content to get the reach that you want it to get.
Right.
But growth does set a floor and does raise that floor each time you add a new follower. So that's the number one metric that we're always chasing after. Impressions are super important because sometimes you'll see something that doesn't have a ton of engagement. You're like, okay, why didn't that have a ton of engagement? And then you go look at the impression numbers and
they're low.
Well, actually high.
They're high. Okay.
So you go look at the impression numbers and they are about what a high performing piece of content would be. What caused that? And then you go look around and it's because people are clicking within the post, but not actually engaging on the post. So it seemed people are actually sifting through it and consuming the content more deeply, but not actually engaging it. So impressions tell a different story than what engagement does, because engagement sometimes is just a passive reflex for people. So I'm still very hyper focused on impression numbers more so than say engagement or views, because views are quite made up a lot of times.
Yeah, but you saying that you're really focused on the impression, that's actually, it's kind of interesting to hear you say that. I love to hear that because most people don't actually focus on the impressions. I say most, that's general. A lot of people that I have talked to in more of a digital space, they're like, I don't focus on the impressions, I focus on the engagement. So it's really interesting to hear the way that you're even dissecting why you're focused on the impressions.
Yeah, and I think people kind of get trapped in you can have a high engaging post that's just a photo and it sees 40,000 impressions or something. You can have a piece of video content that people don't really engage with, but it has somewhere around 100,000 impressions and decent follower growth on it. Which one's more important in that situation?
Right.
So it's understanding that sometimes people aren't going to engage with something that they are just engagement is such a passive reflex. You're almost just catching their lizard brain there to get that click real quick. And I think the platforms really deprioritize that compared to people lingering around on the content and clicking around it, maybe not hitting that like button or that retweet button, but clicking around it and really consuming the content. That's the thing the platforms really prioritize.
And do you think, I don't know, I think about this all the time. And as we talk about, even helping clients push out video content and on connected TV and things like that. But, you've got people who are, to your point, more passively engaging, right? They're doing more than just on their phone or on their iPad or their device looking at the social media content or the YouTube content or whatever. They're watching TV and looking at their phone and talking to their, couch mate there's so much that people are doing when they're actually consuming content.
So which one, when they're doing all of that and they're they're watching, Netflix on the television, how important is that engagement when they're already distracted?
Right.
The thing that you really want is truly engaged, people watching what you are doing with the content that you're producing. You want them to take their eyes away from Netflix and actually look at what you're doing.
Right.
I'll catch some grief if some of my staffers watch this, but I made mention that I did a puppet rap last year and I had 3 different people on my staff being don't put this out. And I'm I'm going to do it. I don't care. I'm going to do it because I feel people are going to really watch it.
They hired you to be wacky. They hired you for the weird, right?
Yes. And I took it to the limits as to how weird I was allowed to get. And I put it out. It saw a ton of views, ton of impressions, and saw a lot of feedback in there being this isn't the kind of content for me. So they were right in that some people didn't reciprocate with it. A lot of people did love it and enjoyed it. Even had Jamar Chase retweet it and it's laughing about it. So it's one of those things not everything that you make is for every person out there, but is it super engaging for the people that you are targeting? And I really don't like, I don't let that get lost on me, that not every piece of content that we create is for every single person on our platform. I've had some negative show reviews so far on the All Access show. I've had people who've talked about the love letter to the fans, but I've had other people say, I wish they didn't focus on the fans so much. And it's like, well, this isn't the show for you, and that's fine.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you even to go further on that, right? Like when you're creating content, I mean, it's not going to be for everybody. You have such a wide range, diverse audience. I mean, your audience is so diverse. And not only are you just Cincinnati based, but you have Cincinnati fans now all over, which I think is also new, right? Like, I don't know if it's the Joe Burrow effect.
Not as new as what you would think. We actually over-indexed before the league started opening up international home markets, which was like a recent development in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
We actually over-indexed internationally. And
really,
we over-indexed nationally as well, in different communities, especially with like how small our market size is compared to other teams. And
that's surprising, right?
you want to know the reason? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I do.
It's Chad Johnson, 1, 2, stripes. They're like, I like the design. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of cool. Like people really enjoy, like, it's just a cool aesthetic, cool design. And like other teams have, I'm not going to say bland, but like whatever. Sometimes it's just a letter or something. Like we've had the coolest helmets since 1980. So it's one of those things, like when people are picking out picking out fandom, sometimes they just pick out like, what's the coolest design?
So we have more of like a Chad Johnson effect of like helping us to have that more diverse market.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
For the Zoomers, obviously, it's Joe Burrow.
Right. Exactly.
And his focus is just purely football. Like
and fun. He seems so fun.
Yeah, and I think something that's like really interesting about the guy is that he was kind of like not in the spotlight for a decent amount of time. And even when he was, playing basketball in Ohio and then went to Ohio State, he still wasn't, like a household name to where he was walking around and like, he would be accosted by like people on the street or something like that. Goes to LSU, even his first year there, still not like as popular, where he's like a national brand name.
Right.
You win a national championship, that changes overnight when you're down at LSU. Suddenly you are, a national brand and everybody just wants to know so much about you. So I feel for the guy because like, this is all still his fame is still relatively new to him, and the guy just wants to play football. And like, I get that but he's, great to work with. He knows like when the moment is like so important that like, I need to speak up. I need to be available to go do these press conferences or interviews or what have you. So he recognizes like, the platform that he's been given.
Yeah. Well, Joe Burrow just seems so humble, honestly. And I don't know if it's like comparison to some other quarterbacks that are more like loud and in your face, but he just seems so humble about like his position and he knows his job. And it's just really interesting to see him. And as a mom of a son who is obsessed with the team, I think it's cool that we have the people in the place that we have because it's great for my kid to look up to. Like, I'm okay with it. I love it. I'm proud that he looks up to Joe Burrow. I'm proud that he does the gritty, right? Like, it's okay. Right?
There's great role models inside the locker room right now. And there's a lot of great personalities that I love to work with. And I don't think that's the case at every team. And like I get a lot of access at the Bengals because they like the football staff and coaches have a lot of trust in me. And that's,
that's huge.
It's huge. It's massive. Like if you're trying to create content that the fans really want to engage with, you have to have access to players and you got to be able to work with players and have trust with the players. Like, I don't know if you know this, but we like shoot mic'd ups and we don't use everything in the mic'd ups. There's a lot of stuff that's like left to trust to be like, we want to portray you all in the best light. We're not here to embarrass you or anything like that.
Right.
So having those trusting relationships with the players to, be able to collaborate to the extent that we have is really important. And what that requires is really good personalities in the locker room that, you know, your kid can look up to and idolize. And, you know, you don't feel like uncomfortable with the idea of like, man, I don't know about this.
Right. Like, oh, yeah. No, it's great. And then, I mean, let's talk about you personally for a few minutes, Seth. So, I mean, you have this awesome position. You love Nutella. But in your free time, I know that's a funny thing to talk about right now as you're ramping up for the season, but in your free time, what are the things that are most important to you? Like, what are your hobbies?
You see, I was having a conversation with this with somebody about this recently to like, I think it's such an important like hiring thing to recognize what people are passionate about.
Yep.
And, like I have my passions and I do rock climbing. Quite honestly, I spend very little time paying attention to sports outside of like what my job entails.
Sure. You got to you got to like walk away from that at times,
yes.
right? Yeah.
And I'm very passionate about art, music, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, like I spend a ton of time rock climbing. I try to bike to work a lot of the times of the year. And I'm very like focused on just staying active and busy and occupied because like having passions about other things translates into being just passionate overall. And I'm really passionate about my job. So it's easy to be passionate about your job when you're like having fun on the side.
When you're fully fulfilled.
Yeah. When you're fully fulfilled.
Yeah.
So, the reason why we were talking about it is like when I was talking with another hiring manager is like when you go to interview people, you ask that question, like, what do you do for fun? And usually you're just making like small talk with somebody.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're actually like, you need to utilize that question to really suss out like, does this person care about things? And are they going to be as passionate as the people you want inside the building?
Right. Exactly. So tell me about rock climbing. Actually, I'm a backpacker. I love backpacking. Have you been down to the gorge?
Yeah.
Like a million times?
Dozens of times. Yeah. Dozens
and Miguel's,
dozens
which is amazing.
Yeah. It's a classic. I mean, like, it's just one of those things you drag, gosh, I use the term classic. That's really bad. That's such a rock climbing term. And, yeah, I mean, like I take friends and family down there and, the default is drop by Miguel's and like introduce them to the place because it's just such a vibe. It really is a vibe. And it's a different kind of culture. And not to like, I'm the kind of person, like I try not to let my hobbies be my personality type or anything like that. But it is, you know, kind of, breathtaking every single time you go down there and you just kind of like, it is my Disney World. Like, I get off the highway and like my heart's racing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy to be here.
There's such like a bug or like an itch with like rock climbing or backpacking or I don't know. There's something about it. And I have a friend that actually, he's one that got me into backpacking. And you know, when he was doing it and I was always asking questions. I'm like, what do you mean you just sleep on the ground? You know, what do you mean you carry everything in this backpack? Like, how heavy is the backpack? And he did a pretty extensive hike, like almost like 26 days worth of hiking, and then came back to work and I had so many questions. And then he was like, just do it with me. Let's just try it. And so after the one time I went on the AT, the Appalachian Trail, that was it. I was hooked. Yeah. It was like, okay, when can I go out the next time?
Yeah. When are you doing the PCT?
Right. Well, that's what he did. He did the PCT.
He did it?
Well, he did. I'm going to mess this up because it's been several years now. But yeah, he did part of the PCT is what he did. So that's when he was gone for 26 days or so.
26 days, yeah.
And he did, he had like a guide and everything. Yeah. And I commend it. I think it's amazing. But at first I was like, you're crazy. Like you're going to the bathroom outside, you're sleeping outside, you're just... I don't know, showering in a lake. Like this makes no sense to me.
You get used to it really quick.
Yeah,
like,
you do.
Honestly, you're just kind of like, this is what I'm doing now. Oh wait, like humans have been doing this for hundreds of thousands of years. It's really not that big of a deal.
It's not that big of a deal. And then when you go out and have the whole experience yourself, you're like, it's freeing. There's no like rules. I mean, there's rules of like, hey, don't litter, don't, all the things,
Yeah.
like take out what you bring in. But it was just one of the most incredible, I don't know, like religious experiences
Yeah.
almost, right? To where I was like, we got to do this again.
Well, I think it's like what I was saying, like being passionate. Like
Yeah.
being passionate means getting out of your comfort zone. And like you so badly just want, people who are willing to get out of their comfort zone to be surrounded by those people. And not even in like a work
Yep.
circumstance.
Yeah.
You just want people that are willing to get out of their comfort zone. If you are a passionate person, because you want other people to like drive you to get out of your comfort zone as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's all about that growth. Like you said, I mean, growth is so important. I think that helps you to grow really too, is when you get out of your comfort zone. Yeah. No, that's awesome. We should go to the Gorge.
Yeah.
Gorge, Miguel's.
Oh man, I just so that any rock climber that might hear this, I'm more of a rock house person. So there you go. But the place is phenomenal down there.
It's really cool. Yeah. We've gotten my daughter into it. She loves it. We'll go to Rock Quest. We have like a little membership at Rock Quest now, so she can go there and climb and the whole thing. Yeah. It's kind of fun. But are you enjoying Cincinnati? Like, I mean, you talk about the arts and being passionate about arts, and have you been able to experience a lot of the things here?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed Cincinnati. I think there's, when you move to a town not knowing anybody, and then, there's a whole pandemic that shuts down everything. So you don't really have an opportunity to meet people for about a year and a half or something like that. That's tough. But like, I think what I've really enjoyed about Cincinnati is that it is a great balance of the things that you love in a city without being overwhelming. And like I love New York City. I always make the joke that like when I go to New York City, there's something like you kind of fall in love with the trash that's all around you.
Right.
And it's just like, wow, it smells terrible. And I love like there's plastic bags flying everywhere. It's just something that like feels very...
It's the energy there.
Yeah, it's just the energy. Cincinnati like has some of those vibes minus the trash and the smells. And like I really enjoy the fact that like OTR is a beautiful area that like has a very rich history, and you can just see it in the architecture. There's like this renaissance of bars and restaurants that is I just don't see it in other cities or anything. And like you go to some of the places and you're like, wow, this is more incredible than anything that I've seen like at a bar in Atlanta or in New York City or like in some places in Europe. And it's just
big city vibes in a smaller city, right?
Within a walkable couple of blocks.
It's so walkable.
My gosh.
Yeah. I mean, we, for a video shoot, Charlie and I, we had to walk like basically from over the river from Purple People Bridge all the way up to OTR and then all the way back. And it's like
totally doable.
Totally doable. Yeah. It's so easy to do.
I like that, it's a breath of fresh air going down Riverside Drive, hopping on the bike, getting onto the Loveland Trail, just going around. There's some great things about the city that I've really enjoyed. I need to get more invested into like trying out. I'm a creature of habit sometimes, but I need to get more invested in like trying out new things around the city and trying out new areas. But yeah, like they continue to build on the city and develop it. And like, there's a lot of stuff to look forward to in the area.
And what should we be excited about with you as we start this new season? You're going to basically live, breathe, eat, sleep Bengals for the next several months, right? So bye-bye, Seth. We're not going to see you again for a while. But what should we be excited about with you? Like, what are you looking forward to?
I'm really looking forward to the show. From the Jungle is just like a great project that I'm super passionate about, and I'm really excited to create something that isn't, less than 30 seconds. And to get to work on that with like a really talented senior producer named Grant Gilkison, and he came out from LA. He's like a big film guy, and like just having somebody that's like as crazy passionate about this kind of stuff as I am is fantastic. Yeah. And I'm just looking forward to like yeah, it's so rinse and repeat sometimes in the NFL. It's like the season's here, everybody gets really excited, but like it just changes the dynamic of the city when football is going on. It is a different vibe, and it's just like, not to borrow your word, but like it's a religious experience because like the dynamic of the city like literally changes the second football starts up.
It does. Yeah. And everybody's involved. You
Yeah.
see buildings lit up in orange. You see all the fans, all the Bengals gear. Everybody just kind of gets that vibe and they just run with it.
Yeah, I know it. Like for the non-sports fans, it really annoys them because it's like their Sundays are like it is.
Consumed.
Yeah, like football is all consuming to the extent that even if you're a non-football fan, your life is affected and your Sundays are wiped out because everybody's busy paying attention to football. And like I've got a lot of friends that aren't huge sports fans or whatever, but like their lives are altered because like football is going on.
Well, Brendan Cole, the president of the Cincinnati Chamber, he was on a recent podcast, and what he said was that there's this like happy effect going on in our economy in Cincinnati. So when the Bengals are winning, when the Bengals went to the Super Bowl, when the Bengals, went to the AFC championships, like there's a happiness effect that is positively impacting our economy. So even if you're not a football fan, it's okay. Our entire economy is still benefiting from football.
Massively too.
Massively.
I just don't think people understand quite like the scale of just like what the team provides back towards the economy and like how important it is for the Bengals to be a part of this community.
Yeah.
And
it's beyond the merchandise.
Yeah. It's beyond the merchandise and all that stuff. Like, the banks exist as a development program. It exists in the way it does now because of a development program that revolved around building the Red Stadium as well as Paycor Stadium.
Right.
And that is like that whole area is transformed because of it.
Right.
And I like sometimes people kind of let like it is a big investment to, build a football stadium like that. But like the dividends that it's paid, you can literally see it in a couple of blocks radius down at the banks.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And again, it's all walkable if you're down here. You can walk anywhere you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey, we have taken up so much of your time and appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. And we're, obviously rooting and excited. And I think as fans, we should really appreciate you because you are our connection to the team and to all this content. So thank you so much.
I really appreciate you having me on and just musing endlessly about something that like, I hope people find interesting, but yeah, I mean like it's something that I care about at least. It's really niche. I wish I was into like the stock market or something because I could put this energy towards something that actually makes me money, but like I love talking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah, we're a podcast for marketers, so this is perfect. This is great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening. If you would like to rediscover your own story, please connect with us at any of the links below. My name is Jessie Heron. Thanks for taking a break with me.